Good morning guys, I am Lee and you are watching Barham Engines. Well guys, what is going to be in today's video? You can see here we've got a Series 1 Land Rover engine and it all looks pretty fresh, and the reason for that is that we have already done this engine. The customers had it back at the beginning of this year, but we've got it back here. It was put in the vehicle actually. They've had to take it out and bring it back. We're not going to put that in today's episode, but that will be in the next one, so stay tuned. So today is predominantly going to be mostly about the Golf R. We've got to get that finished. But guys, before we go any further today, we have got a little bit of a confession to make. So, the kit car. If you have a look at the front of the kit car, we've got plenty of cable ties around the bottom, and we got some battle scars. Now, why have we got battle scars on the front end, you might be thinking? And the reason for that is we did a cheeky little track day on Friday. And next you'll probably be thinking, well, why didn't you tell us about it? Because some of you might have wanted to come over and said hello. Now the reason is we did it with gold tracks. It was a sort of limited numbers one, and because it was on the Friday, there was actually a big race meeting at Castle Combe on the Saturday and Sunday, so obviously it was fairly packed there. Most of them were sort of waiting to get out on track and test, etc. They managed to squeeze us in for a track day, so they wanted it kept a little bit sort of under wraps, so we didn't go about advertising it just in case a load of people turn up. You never know, with us being famous and all. We didn't want a load of people turning up and sort of swamping the place really, so we just wanted to go and test out our new tyres, which you can see have been well worn and very, very hot. What has happened to the front end, you might be asking? So I was going down the start finish straight at, apparently, as far as the GPS says, was doing about 100 mile an hour, and I seen a sort of flash in front of my eyes, and I thought, what the hell was that? Looked over, bonnet was still on, because we did lose the bonnet once at Perranporth. And when I got back into the pits after being red flagged, the whole session was red flagged, we noticed a chap walking over with the front of our car, and apparently the wind's got under it, it's blew off that quick, I could barely see it. And being fiberglass, I was fairly surprised that it didn't just obliterate itself. Fortunately it didn't, and as you can see, it's sort of gone down the road with a few battle scars, but fortunately again, it is wrapped, so we're gonna just take the wrap off, repair that, and get it re-wrapped. But apart from that, guys, car went absolutely smokingly. Isaac and I was in it all day, thrashing the nuts off it. Tyres were like glue, and yeah, really thoroughly enjoyed it. So I do apologise for that, guys. Mark my words, the next time we do one of these track days, we will be telling you. It was just on that occasion we couldn't have tons of people turning up. Not that they would have, but if you know what I mean. So anyway, let's head in the workshop and get on with the Golf R engine. So we've got the valve stem seals on. I'm just putting the inlet valves in here. So what we do, just a thin coat of oil on the shaft there, insert it in, spin it round, so it's just giving that initial coating of oil on the valve. Obviously as soon as the engine fires up, this will burn off, but it just sort of lubricates it in the guide, so if it's left standing, you don't get that initial sort of binding in the guide. Same with the exhaust. When you put it down the guide, you'll see there it gets to a point where it stops. Well, that's where it's hitting the valve stem seal. So you just be a little bit careful when you put it through the seal, because sometimes the end of the valve can be a bit sharp, and it might tear that seal when it goes through. So there we go. They're all in. Next thing we do is turn it over. Right. So the next thing is fitting the valve springs. Now, on these Volkswagens, very important to get this right, you have two lengths of valve springs. So you've got a 53 by 24 by 24, and you've got a 44 by 22 by 22. Now, the long one is the exhaust, and the short one is the inlet. So you must make sure you get that correct. Also, you can see that the coils are tighter down the bottom, and we have marks there at the top. So this side with the tighter coils, and the marks go to the top, the coils go down to the bottom. So exhaust being that side, inlet being this side, we will now fit the correct ones. The valves actually on the inlet and exhaust protrude the same length on the opposite side. It's just that the exhausts are longer. So there we go. Also on the Volkswagens, very, very important to get correct. Make sure that the springs are seated correctly down on the spring base and not sitting too long or on a casting. You actually find on when you buy new valves on the packaging, they will give you a warning to state that because of the design down the bottom, down the base there, it's quite easy for this to sit about 3mm higher on the latch, on a sort of bit of casting next to the valve seat base. And then what happens is it will work for a while, but it will actually coil bind. And you get to a point where it will coil bind, break the top, shear the top off the valve where the collets go, drop a valve, and all hell breaks loose. And I know that through experience, because when I first started here, and obviously I was a trainee, the first year I had to do a head gasket on my Audi A420 valve. So I bought the head in here, obviously know it all, don't I, back then. I've done exactly that, fitted it. The car we fired up when we refitted the head. It ran for about 30 seconds, then dropped a valve. Fortunately, didn't damage the ball, but it mullered a piston, and we had to sort of stick a couple of inserts in the head. So yeah, lesson learnt there. So then what we do, fit the spring tops. Which are all the same on the inlet and exhaust. And then what we're going to do is take this head over to the valve spring compressor, and we're going to fit the collets. And then this head is ready to go on that block. All your head studs are in. You can see the little Allen key at the top there. We've put all these in sort of finger tight, and then I've torqued all these up to 15 foot-pounds. Before we fit the head gasket, we've got two little dowels here. Now these aren't dowels that locate the head. These are actually dowels that just keep the gasket absolutely perfect on the block face. Because they're not a through hole, we've had to actually muller one of them to get them out. So I've replicated one. This is an original, this is a copy, just using a bit of 6mm silver steel. And we just tap them down till they're in their home position. It is absolutely of paramount importance that when you face the block face and a cylinder head, you do check the lengths of your dowels compared to the holes in the cylinder head. You don't want these dowels bottoming out in the base of the head and giving you a false torque setting. So we've put those dowels in now. Next thing is the head gasket. So we place that head gasket over there. It can only go one way. A lot of head gaskets have got a directional, like they'll have top on one side, so you know the top faces upwards. But this one only goes on one way. So what we do is we put it on, you see it goes over the dowels there. You just give it a good visible, make sure it is 100% the correct gasket, because although it is the correct headset and the correct part number, we always check it visibly. And also making sure that the inside is not overhanging the bore, because we've rebored it. Okay, so the thumbnail and title. So if you watched the last video, we have had a problem with an engine that we did. This is an engine that we did last year, so almost a year ago we did this, and it is an XK120 3.4 Jaguar 6-cylinder engine. Now the engine is going in a C-type. Now it's a C-type replica, but this isn't just any ordinary replica. This is an absolute stunning vehicle. The owner has been collecting parts to build this car for about 30 years. Fortunately, back in the day, he's managed to get many of genuine parts. The body was built off an original C-type body. So yeah, you can imagine what this car's like, and you can imagine what this car's worth. So obviously, when we did the engine, we were employed by the customer to do the engine to as best a spec we can, visibly and internally, obviously. So we've done this motor, everything was done, all of the best quality parts, as you can expect. So yeah, we were very disappointed when he got hold of us last Sunday via email, saying, you know, he's got this problem and he needs it rectified ASAP. So I got hold of him on the Sunday. Don't worry, whatever it is, we'll sort it out. Now, the problem he had, after he built the car and got the engine in, they finally got it running. And after about 20 seconds, it filled his workshop full of smoke. And when I say filled, he said to the point where they had to evacuate it. It was that bad. He's obviously got in touch with me, very concerned. And when I spoke to him on the phone, the symptoms didn't add up to it being an actual engine issue. And one of the main symptoms was, obviously we'd done everything. It was rebored, did the cylinder head and all the rest of it. But he said it was, the plugs were wet across the board. Now, the first thing I got him to check was obviously the breather, which he did. He said it was all clear. Obviously, we had the breather and we sorted that out anyway. Next thing was, obviously, I said, go away, do a compression test, etc., see what you got. They all came back fine. So at this point, I said, look, John was involved with the engine more than I was. He wasn't here last week, so I said, if you can wait till Monday, let me have a chat with him. And we'll go from there. But at this stage, I'm scratching my head and I'm a little bit concerned that we may have to pull this engine out of the vehicle, which is not an easy task. Last week, a customer of ours called Ian Johnston, Ian predominantly deals with Triumph, old Triumph motorcycle engines now, absolute wizard at it. But when Ian was in last week picking up a cylinder head, for some reason I thought, I was thinking about this problem obviously all day and all week really, and I thought, I'm sure Ian told me once upon a time that he used to build these Jag engines. So I just happened to mention it to him while he was here, and he said, yeah, I used to build those. I told him the symptoms we've got and what's happening and the things we found with the engine. He says, don't, whatever you do, strip that engine, there'll be nothing wrong with it. And I said, well, that's what I was thinking, but I can't really see another reason, bar the breather, why this could be happening apart from rings, etc. He said, well, the only thing we had years ago, he said, check the oil pressure relief valve. I said, well, the weird thing is the customer said he'd got really good oil pressure, obviously before they fired it up and when it ran, which is strange. He said, check it anyway, because you could be maxing the gauge out, which looks like you got great oil pressure, but you're getting too much, which means it's probably filling the head up and going down the guides, pressurising the crankcase and all sorts. So I said, well, yeah, I'll mention it to him. I couldn't see at that point how that could affect it this bad, but I did mention it to the customer and he said, well, it's not too bad a job taking the oil filter housing off the side of the motor and checking the relief valve. So, but he said, so I'll do that. So he went away, did it. Sure enough, Friday night, when I was actually out having a meal, I got an email, which I read, and it was from the owner of the vehicle. And he said, massive thanks to you guys, huge relief, but it's cured the problem. He said it was a bit sticky. Obviously, the engine's been sitting for some time. So he's sort of freed it up with a bit of Brasso, etc., cleaned it all up, put it in, fired the engine up. After 10 seconds, all the smoke cleared. Absolutely clean as a whistle, doesn't smoke at all, engine runs sweet as a nut. He's absolutely over the moon. So Ian, thank you very, very much for that recommendation and that suggestion. Thanks to all you guys that have commented and took the time to ring us up and email, etc., with what potentially it could be, but that has cured the problem, guys. So you live and learn. Although we've done loads of these Jaguars, we've never had that problem before. And we're not the only ones, because I did ring a specialist up that specialise in XKs, and they built a lot of engines, and they were scratching their head too on this one. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. We're just over the moon that it's all sorted and the customer's happy with the vehicle. So thanks once again. Right, so just about to fit the cylinder head, guys. All the springs are on, etc. So what I do before I stick the head on is we get number 1 and 4 up to TDC and we just back it off anti-clockwise, so we know that it's going to be clear of the valves when the cams go in, and then all you've got to do is bring it forward clockwise up to TDC afterwards. So ensuring that all the head face is clean, obviously the gasket's clean and the block face is clean. What we do then is we just pop the head very carefully over the studs, making sure that we don't scratch the head face on the studs. You just pop that over the valves and there we go, that is on. Next thing we've got to do is grease up the washers and the base of the nuts, and obviously a bit in the thread, with the ARP lube. Put these all on, and what we've got to do is torque these down in the usual sequence, going from middle to the outers, in 3 stages up to 80 foot-pounds of torque with these, using that grease. So we've wound all these down, all the nuts down by hand. What I'm going to do is just do our usual from the inside out in the diagonal, just nipping these up gently in this sequence, and then it says 3 stages up to 80 foot-pounds, so I'm going to do 30, 60 and then 80. So we take our torque wrench, set this to 30 foot-pounds, and do the first sequence. Then we go to 60. Okay. Warm enough out there now, mate, is it? Warm enough out there now, is it? And then final stage, 80. Got a bit of a sweat on now. And what I do, if it's a torque setting, final, not an angle, go back to the centres and just make sure that those centre ones have not come loose. And there we go. That engine is all ready to go back to the customer. Well, thanks ever so much for watching today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next one, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you then. Take it easy. Cheers.